bit unlucky, I think. We're 8, 9 really good chances, and we didn't score. We have to take each game very confident because I think every game is a different game. Really.
Okay, that's Leroy. What about his Dutch colleague then, Ricky van Wolfswinkel? That helps it say the nose accent. Sorry, it always seems to be the way.
Well, yeah, it's easy to spotlight again, but that's the defending the player who assessed the kicking in the game against Manchester City on Saturday, for example. Van Wolfswinkel, I'm struggling as well. He said on Twitter that he believes that Manchester City's Yaya Toure received no punishment following their flare-up, suggesting that players of his stature belong on the pitch. Toure escaped a retrospective ban after the incident was reviewed by the FA.
Any other league football tonight?
There is. Well, Colchester United are hoping that they play their first league game in 3 weeks. Joe Dunn's team have had to deal with 4 postponements recently. Tonight they visit Port Vale, knowing a win can lift them to 13th in League One. By the way, their weekend game at Swindon, scheduled for Saturday, has been brought forward to Friday night. Now, 4 postponements sounds big. Braintree sit out their 7th game this year in the conference tonight. Their game against Forest Green off because of the waterlogged night.
Just forget what football's about, won't they? Thank you very much indeed for that, Donny. Now then, it's a little over 4 months until the greatest cycling race in the world, the Tour de France, comes to our region. If that prospect doesn't inspire you to get on your bike, well, then maybe you just need a little bit more encouragement.
Well, the nation's cycling governing body has now set out a plan to get more of us cycling. They want 10% of journeys to be made on a bike. At the moment, it's just 2% across the Anglia region, and that's despite Cambridge being the cycling capital of Britain, with nearly 1/5 of people biking to work there.
David Wood has more on this story.
Getting around by 2 wheels is becoming more popular, but more than half of us don't feel safe riding on the road, despite wanting to. And that's why British cycling, led by former Olympic cyclist Chris Boardman, is calling for the government to do more to help make the UK a cycling nation.
We want to see committed funding free.
Waiting time targets, and it failed its A&E targets to see patients within 4 hours. A Department of Health investigation was launched into its higher than expected death rates. A year on, there's been just a 1% improvement. Kim Hodgson also has to tackle the Trust's £3.5 million deficit. Gareth George has been to her first board meeting today in Colchester.
Colchester Hospital's new interim chief executive at her first board meeting this afternoon. The woman with one of the toughest jobs in the NHS, turning around one of the country's worst performing health trusts.
I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to take on the challenge here, and I came and visited the hospital, and I sat in the A&E department, I sat in outpatients, and I just watched and wanted to see how staff were with each other. I appreciate that when you take these kinds of jobs on, that you have to do it with your heart. It isn't just about having the relevant skills. You have to really want to do the right thing and help both the organisation and patients and future patients of the Trust, and I felt that I had the skills to do that, and I'm very pleased that I did.
It's been a torrid 12 months for the Trust. A year ago, Colchester was among 14 hospitals investigated by Professor Sir Bruce Keogh because higher than expected numbers of patients were dying. And last November, it emerged staff had been bullied into changing the medical records of cancer patients.
I don't think anybody could be as harsh or more ashamed of what happened at Colchester hospitals than the people that work here. Everybody tries very hard to right those wrongs.
If you had a relative who was diagnosed with cancer, would you be happy for them to come to Colchester Hospital to be treated?
Yes, I would. I would not hesitate.
Kim Hodgson says Colchester Hospital is on the road to recovery.
Well, let's get some more details now from Gareth, who's outside the hospital now. Gareth.
Well, Stuart, Kim Hodgson's first board meeting, one of her first media interviews. She's got a tough job. It's going to take a long time to restore the confidence of the community in Colchester Hospital. And meanwhile, a couple who've been trying to help the hospital deal with the way it handles complaints say they're frustrated by the lack of progress.
The patient's voice is definitely being heard at the hospital. I've no doubt about that. It is aired in every opportunity, but whether it's actually being listened to and acted upon, I'm not so sure.
So a police investigation is still going on into the allegations that staff altered the records of cancer patients, and an independent report commissioned by the hospital into those allegations is expected to be published in the next few weeks. Kim Hodgson, though, is a former nurse. She says she wants to enable staff here to do the best they can for the people of Colchester.
Gareth, thank you very much.
Well, this afternoon I spoke to the Essex MP Bernard Jenkin, whose constituency is served by the hospital. I started by asking if he was confident the new chief executive would be able to turn things around.
It's going to take time, and inevitably, what Colchester is going through is rather like, though not nearly on the same severity, as the Mid-Staffs Hospital.
Flood risk hasn't evaporated, and it'll be a long time before some of this water has gone. Simon Harris, ITV News, Staines.
It's a lucky goldfish. Well, flooding isn't the only problem caused by the rain in the last few weeks. The downpours have led to massive craters, also known as sinkholes, being created. But what exactly does the rain cause the earth to open up? Master Stu has been finding out.
They appear with no warning and cause no end of problems. In the past fortnight, we've seen at least 8 sinkholes in the southeast. Last week, the M2 was closed for hours as a crater appeared next to the carriageway. On Saturday, half of this street in Hemel Hempstead was evacuated when this 20-foot deep chasm opened. Further afield, today these homes in Yorkshire are near collapse after the gypsum rock they're built on disintegrated. In London we don't have the easily soluble gypsum rock, but we do have chalk. You can see it here as that green bed which runs through the London region, and that can also be dissolved by rainwater. More exactly, by the acid picked up by rainwater as it passes through rotting vegetation. That creates cavities underground which streams can flow through. And we can see that process on this experiment done by the British Geological Survey. Now, this white band here is actually salt, but it's representing the chalk getting dissolved away. As the rainwater falls on top of the ground, it becomes heavier, and eventually the ground collapses. Other sinkholes like this one in High Wycombe, which engulfed a family car, are not sinkholes at all. They were created by man-made disruption caused by mining and are technically known as crown holes. But in both cases, it's the sheer amount of rainwater which has accelerated the damage, and we're not out of the woods yet.
We're likely to get more, but carrying on the sort of second phase, as the ground dries out, as the water table lowers within the ground, the lowering of the water naturally can cause sinkholes.
With 2 weeks left till the end of February, we've already seen the wettest winter since records began back in 1910. We may be feeling the effects for many more weeks to come. Martin Stew, ITV News.
Martin will be back later on in the programme to look ahead at what the weather's looking like for the rest of the week. Police investigating the murder of a vulnerable man with learning difficulties in Greenfoot have made 2 more arrests. Dean Maley, who was 24, was attacked in Ruislip Road on the 7th of February. He died from a single stab wound to the chest. 2 teenagers have been arrested after handing themselves in to a North London police station. The 2 men found guilty of killing soldier Lee Rigby outside Woolwich Barracks will find out next week how long they'll spend in jail. Michael Adebowale and Michael Adebolajo were convicted of murder in December. Sentencing was delayed pending a court of appeal hearing on the use of whole jail terms, which today ruled life means life sentences are legal in the UK. And a police marksman is challenging a ruling that he used excessive force when he shot a man dead in Edgware in 2005. The man, known only as E7, said he believed Ezell Rodney had reached for a gun. The public inquiry found the 24-year-old was unlawfully killed. A lack of money due to budget cuts at Pentonville Prison have been blamed for serious failings and could lead to it closing. A report by inspectors found that inmates could easily get hold of drugs, wardens lost track of where prisoners were, and that was seriously overcrowded. It also said job cuts at the jail were having a serious impact on how it was run. Our senior correspondent Toronto Phillips explains.
The public face of Penton. Inspectors also found an infestation of vermin throughout the jail. Former inmate Derek Davis last served his sentence at Pentonville 3 years ago and says conditions are so notoriously bad, even career criminals try to avoid being sent there.
2011, A-Wing, I was having cockroaches coming under the door, you know, at night, so you're wedging newspapers in the gap of the door.
And I understand you've seen rats coming up through the toilet system.
Yeah, the rat's head poke up through the toilet system on the tubes.
Prison reform groups say the fault lies squarely on the shoulders of the government and what it calls its unsustainable cutbacks.
ultimately the criticisms are not criticisms of the prison and its staff, but criticisms of the resourcing of the prison, and that lies squarely at the Ministry of Justice and the government. They are pushing through budget cuts which are making it increasingly difficult for Pentonville to deal with the very complex issues that it faces with the prisoners in the jail.
The report says the prison now needs serious financial investment and proper staffing levels to make it viable. Otherwise, it says the answer is simple. Pentonville should be shut down. From Kate Phillips, ITV News.
Fans heading to tonight's Champions League game in Manchester have received an unusual request to help find a baby who's gone missing in North London. The appeal comes after a judge agreed the identity of the 4-month-old girl could be revealed for the first time. Police believe Farah Afzal may have been abducted, and you can take a look at the appeal in full and find out why football fans are getting involved by going to our website, itv.com/London. You're watching the ITV News in London.